I think we're live. Good evening, folks, and welcome. Hope you're all doing okay on this lovely Tuesday night. So tonight we have back after many, it's been quite a while, isn't it? Many months.
It has been.
Lou Haddow. Now, I've known Lou for about 2 or 3 years. She's a paranormal investigator, but just recently she turned her hand to a new crime channel. And I'm going to get her to tell you the name because it's a long name and I can never remember it.
Well, actually, I've had to change my name. For everybody that doesn't know me, my name's Lou Haddow. I was a paranormal investigator, and I wanted to do something different, so I I did a group. It was called Criminology, Forensic Psychology, and the Unsolved. But then I thought about changing it, obviously, and making it a bit shorter. Because trying to get your tongue around that sometimes is actually quite hard. And plus, Facebook was coming down hard on me because of a page. Because I obviously didn't like the page. Because it can be quite fussy, as you know, anything that you post, you end up getting put in the Facebook jail. So now it's called Criminals and Villains.
That's all easier because there's a few times I try to look up your group. And you know when you're on Facebook and you start to type in and you can only remember half the name. And you think, no,
well, that's why I've changed it, because it's much more easier for people to remember rather than, hitting this big out of them.
It's quite a long blooming name, do you know what I mean?
Do you know when I first made it, I couldn't actually think of a name off by hand because I was thinking, right, this is the way I want my group to go. This is what I want to talk about. But what name would be quite catchy, that people would remember, and I'm thinking to myself, I'll just call it this for the time being. Lucky enough, Facebook doesn't give you 28 days to change it, so I was able again to change the name, and obviously there was something more suitable, and I actually really like my name. It was John Williams that actually came up with that. And I was like, I should have thought of that, but I'm thinking there's so many groups out there that have got so many names, and you've got to kind of tread carefully with what you call your group, because you have somebody in the background always moaning that, well, my group's called this.
You copied me. It's the same when Sarah and I started our group. We were trying to think of a name and we thought, well, we both, I love the paranormal. Sarah was just getting into it. And we love history. I said, so paranormal history, do we call it paranormal history? Do we call it history paranormal? And you think, and then so we came up with, that's how we came up with, why don't we just call it paranormal in history? So you start searching, like Facebook, YouTube, you start typing in just to make sure that nobody's got that name. As you say, you get folk will be mailing and complaining, you stole your name. I know there is a paranormal history channel, but to date, I've not had anybody mail me saying you stole your name.
I mean, what I've always learned in the paranormal, which Dave Harasney told me, was always make sure you've got the CR at the end, because nobody then can turn around and come back to you and say, obviously, we're copying. Hello, hello, Andy. See, I'm not the only one that calls you Baldy.
I always get slagged off. I won't even get the wig tonight, actually. I actually to shave my hair again. That's twice in a week. I think it must be all the rain we're having.
It must be.
It seems to be growing faster. Thanks very much for that, Mr. Murphy. There's Laura saying hi as well.
Hi, Laura. How you doing? But by the way, you can't call Andy. I don't know if you watched this in last night's show with me and Jenny, but we were talking. You can't call MD Baldy anymore because apparently it's sexual harassment.
That's right, Mr. Murphy. You'll be hearing from our lawyer. Aye, I forgot all about that, dog. Thanks very much for that. He's over in, I want to say Antelope Valley, I think it is. So, but my lawyer's got a long reach, so you'll be here. Thanks very much for that, Lou. I'll come to
I only remember that because I thought of you and Robbie, and I'm like, I can't call you Baldy anymore because you could do me for sexual harassment.
Aye, I could, you know, have a go. Call me at once, please. I mean,
All right, Baldy, there you go.
we're just, I'll take note of the names. You know what I mean? Guilty. Aye, you're guilty, Mr. Murphy. You and I have talked very, very soon, young man. He spends half his life at the pool, him. So he does. So your crime channel, I watched your show, and it was really, really good. And I think I threw you some ideas. So is that, hi Facebook user, evening to you.
Hi.
So are you still keeping a hand in the, you know, 1 foot in the paranormal, or are you totally kind of?
I mean, as I said, you know, I'm not closing the door on the paranormal because obviously I've still got my show with Jacqueline, and you know, paranormal will always be like a close one to my heart. But turn that down a bit. And as you know, I'll always have paranormal close to my heart, but I want to do something different, something that you know what it's like, Scott. You go onto YouTube all the time. You see so many lives. You see so many people doing shows now, paranormal wise, and I thought, you know what? I want to do something different. I want to be able to do something that I also enjoy. And the next thing for paranormal is crime. So I'm like, I don't really see any crime podcasts unless, of course, I'm looking for them. But I don't really see them on Facebook. So I thought, well, why not do crime? Do something that, you know, people enjoy. You know, I don't enjoy crime, but you know what I mean. And so I started the show. You know, I didn't expect to get as many views as what I did get. You know, and that to me gave me a confidence builder to, you know what, it's something different. Yes, it's on a paranormal network, but it's something different. And as I said, my show, I want to, the whole, you know, ethics of my show is I want to talk about cases, look at the unsolved, look at fictional, look at real, you know, and it's about really just having a relaxed talk, like having a chat with everybody. What's your theories? What's your thoughts? You know, is there something behind it? You know, looking at all different kinds of things, really.
I totally get you 100%.
I
With the, you know, as you're saying about the channels and what have you, paranormal, there is a lot of disrespect to them. There is a lot, and they're all seem to be doing the same thing, you know. That's why we try to be a wee bit, no special sort of, you know, we're not trying to be number one or, you know, any of that bollocks. I just think people are, especially with what's happened in the last few years, couple of years, whatever, folk are bored, you know, and they've been watching the same thing, you know, week in, week out. And so they're wanting something different, you know, and that's why we believe in trying to vary our guests, you know, we go for paranormal teams, the historians, authors, actors, you know, the whole kind of shebang. Andy's saying, James Anito is a version of Actual in the US. It's a great twist. He brings crime and paranormal together.
Well, John Williams and myself, we've spoke, and John would said the exact same, you know, sort of lines, bringing crime and paranormal together, which I think it's a good idea. You know, it is a good way. Like, you have paranormal in history, whilst I could have crime and paranormal. You know, it's something different. It is, you know, it is about, you know, finding my feet with it. And to be honest, I must admit, I fair enjoy talking about crime. I really, really do.
See, I love, Sarah will tell you, I love all the crime programs. I watch a lot on Netflix, American ones, British ones as well, true crime and the Homicide Hunter. There's loads of them. I love flicking through and watching them. But you get crime, you get the paranormal as well. Sometimes the two, they will come together. I mean, I said to you before, but Amityville,
Yes.
you know,
We need to do a show on that one night, definitely.
that's that's the one I wanted to do, because I think, you know, it's such a tragic but great story. Laura's saying, I watch a lot of crime stuff. Your show is thought provoking, gets you thinking, gets people talking.
It definitely does, Laura. I mean, as I said, you know, there's so much to crime, you know. I love sitting down like the unsolved. I want to look at the unsolved that no one, I mean, no the most obvious unsolved, but get into the unsolved cases. There's many a times where I've been on criminally listed watching that channel on YouTube, and there's plenty there that cases that I never even knew existed, and I'm thinking all you see is like the big headlines, Ted Bundy, you know, Again, you know, Jeffrey Dahmer. Why not look at the ones that are, you know, like MD in the Paranormal? If you go to Greyfriars a lot, right, just taking this as prime example, people are going to get bored. They're going to go to see somewhere else. So why not look at the small places that you have that you can explore that's never ever been looked at?
Mm-hmm. Aye, 2000%. See, that's what we're going doing. We're going to be here venturing out of Ayrshire and what have you, and going to places that nobody's heard of. Because you say, great, all right, we love Greyfriars and like a second home to us, you know, but it's just that, you know, that's what it is. But people will get fed up looking at the same locations, the same crimes, you know. I mean, no disrespect to any of the victims. Ted Bundy, I was watching some Ted Bundy last night, actually. His last 24 hours, his last interview, Ted Bundy's before.
Yeah.
He insisted on getting interviewed or something before, you know, they done the deed.
Yeah. I think Ted Bundy himself was convinced that he was going to get off with it. He was going to use his charm and use his, you know, his whole demeanour, and he was going to be very convincing. That's why he never had a lawyer, because he was convinced that he was going to win it. He only had a lawyer when he knew he was going to lose.
He was such a charismatic character. He thought he was some kind of celeb, you know. What's Andy saying? You live in Scotland, Scott, no one has heard of anywhere up there. I've heard of Edinburgh and Glasgow. You know what I mean? That's two places.
If you turn around and say to somebody, have you ever heard of eco-fecking? A lot of people just look at you if you're daft.
I go that way. I mean, no, that's true. There is places in Scotland that I've never heard of, and I drove trucks for 20 years. So, I mean, I've been from one end corner of this country to the other, then back again. But there is plenty of places that I've never heard of. But, I mean, like I say, Bundy, you know, I've watched a lot on Bundy, and I think once he got arrested, he saw himself as a kind of celeb, you know, because he was...
Oh, God, aye.
You name it. Laura, Facebook user. I love to investigate Lock My Ben Castle. It's my family history. See, I've never heard of that. Lock My Ben.
I must admit, I've not heard of that. Where is that, if you don't mind me asking?
Once for it definitely needs a proper investigation.
There's somewhere to put in your list, Scott.
Well, I don't want to steal anybody's ideas, you know, because there's enough of that goes on in the paranormal these days. Let's face it.
Oh, it's in Dumfries. Oh wow.
I think that's Sten. If that's Sten, then Sten is the Silent Hunter. Give a look up. Andy is GWPS. I think Andy, put the name of your group in the comments, because I can never remember. He likes to add letters on. Andy does to his group, you know. And
that's the same as Jenny. I mean, I did an interview with Jenny last night, and I had to first of all ask her what her last name was, how to pronounce it, and then when I just thought I was getting the right bit, she added in another group, so I had to actually kind of look down to make sure I had it. That's what she was the owner of. UKGWP.
He added a US or something onto it, I'm sure, the other week. He'd added a US, because I think they're on Twitter, TikTok. He added another couple of letters on. I've done that myself. I think the worst boo-boo I've made is I've introduced somebody, you know, I've got their name right, but I've got the group, Brian. I've got, I've got a
It's
totally
alright. I've totally done that myself. I meant to actually introduce one team, and I've half Jacqueline's name and put the rest of their group, and I'm just like, oh.
That's the thing I like. It's no, it's no pre-recorded or nothing. So if you goof up, there's Sarah putting Andy's proper name up.
Yeah,
United
kind of
Kingdom
whispery.
Ghostbusters Paranormal. That's a bit like your old name for your channel.
I know that would be quite a mouthful to remember. Like you're introducing Andy and then having to rattle off that.
I
It
didn't
is.
say Andy and Kirsty's group. But no, see that's the thing about Alive. It's just totally.
It's free publicity.
Andy, you've got a lawsuit coming. I mean, this is a wee favour for you.
You better start a GoFundMe.
Aye. Or that Just Farms or whatever the hell that is. We're friends for years, Scott, and a member of PIH for a year, and still you call me Lorna.
Lorna.
Sarah's boss is called Lorna, right?
Right.
So Sarah talks about her quite not all the time, but and so I get mixed up, I'll say that's Lorna. Laura's on the phone. What was Lorna saying today? No, I mean, you get mixed up,
It happens to us all.
It does get people talking. I forgot what I was saying there. You get people's names mixed up on your live. I think it breaks ice a wee bit as well, and it lets people out there see that, but we're just normal people. We're human. We goof up,
Exactly.
and we're no scared to admit it. So when you do Amityville, I'm going to keep on and on you to do Amityville because I think it's such.
What I'm thinking is what we'll do is if you give me dates that you are available, then I can obviously we'll get that organised. It's just whenever you want, really. Tomorrow I've got Rosie, so I've not even got next week's shows planned, so
That's fine, though. I'll have a wee look at the calendar. Because we covered Amityville. Sarah will tell you better. I think it wasn't last year, it was the year before. We covered, and it was Amityville Real or Fake or something we called it. Because there's going back to the paranormal and the crime, there's two different sides to this story. Was Rory DeField just there's a lot of comedians in the chat tonight, though. You notice that?
it's not free until August 2021.
I'll fit you in somewhere. But I'm not going to rant on about Amityville, but I mean, like Ronnie DeFeo, was he possessed? Was he, insane? Was he a serial killer? It's all the kind of things, and that's what I find so fascinating about it. So, are you going to be back out investigating again, or is that?
I mean, I haven't closed the door on paranormal and get out and investigate, and I think it's just to find my rhythm again, because I think I have lost that whole. I think there's so much drama on paranormal, and it's not just that. I had personal things going on as well, and it clashed. And it's just, I think what I need to do is, take that step back, rejig myself, and don't get me wrong, I still tune into lives and I still do lives in the paranormal, but I just think it's just that breakaway, just to regroup and find myself.
Aye, totally. He's busy 2024 when we return to the UK. 3 years of investigating to catch up on. That's a lot of investigations. I know what you mean, though. We drama last year, and Sarah and I took about 3 weeks out, and we just didn't do anything. We done nothing, and I think we just needed to kind of recharge and say, what we want to do, and we decided to carry on. And now we've got an absolutely two fantastic teams, and we kind of found what's the word, mojo again, you know, and we've not looked back since. So I do get what you mean, and the drama and the paranormal, far too much here.
I think, to be honest, we all have a calling in life, right? Everybody has a calling in life. And I think I've tried that many times with paranormal that it's a bit like a marriage. See, when you've been married for somebody for so long and the spark starts to go, and then it feels like it's, oh, here we go again, sort of thing. Inside myself, whilst my crime, I'm a lot more happier. If that makes sense, I'm a lot more, right, I feel comfortable. Don't get me wrong, when I've got Jacqueline and we do our paranormal show and things like that, I love it, because me and Jacqueline we've got that bond, and we just bounce off each other. And I think, see, when you find that in the paranormal, it's unbreakable. Like, me and Jacqueline have always been good friends, and we've always bounced off each other, and we always know the other side of the phone. And there's times where I've said, do you know what, I just can't do this, and it's her that's gave me the kick up the backside and said, no, you can do this.
Because you've been into paranormal for a lot of years, and I mean, I've been out with you as well a couple of times, investigation with Robbie, and you do know your stuff, you know, and you're genuine, you know, there's no kind of fakery or, you know, attention seeking or sort of. You go and you do your stuff, and you know, that's it. You're not in it for stars or points or Oscars.
Oh God, do you know what, Scott? I'm definitely not. And see, if only one person, and I've always said this with my crime show, that's why I was so shocked when I looked at the insights and I thought people are actually watching this, and I'm thinking to myself, even if I got one person to watch, that would make me happy. See, if no people watched it or commented but had a 2 minute glance, that's the sort of person I am. That would even keep me happy. You know what I mean? It's the small things that totally, like.
But that, I mean, there is a lot of teams out there that are views driven. Don't get me wrong. Everyone likes to see, you know, you get maybe 500 views in a live deal like that. You know, you're, oh, that's great. You know, we pat in the back and you move on. You know, but you're no views driven. There's teams out there that are views driven, followers driven. You know, all the rest of it, and that's not the way to work. And
It definitely isn't. I mean, as I said, I'm just quite happy if one person wants to watch my crime show. That's fine with me. It's absolutely. I'm just in it because, as I said, it's something different. It's something that people will talk about. It's I like it also because, touch wood, you know, everybody that I've ever had that's commented's always been respectful in what they've said, and you know, that's why obviously they forget it's a love, a passion that drives it. It definitely does, Laura. And as I said, you know, why I did the crime was because I have got a passion and I have got an interest. I would love to know what makes somebody do what, obviously, that drives somebody as a human being to do what they do.
I'm fascinated with some of it. There's a thing on Netflix I think you should watch. It's called Meet, Marry, Murder.
Yeah, I'll take the name of that. I'll watch that.
I've been watching it for the past, I don't know, couple of weeks, and some of them on it are, you know, you think, what made you, you know, do it? So, I mean, there's a couple of famous ones on it, you know, but there's the majority of them are cases, as you say there, like you've never heard about before. And I watched one last night. It was about a woman, your typical grandmother, and after 30 odd years of marriage, she just shot her husband, and then she buggered off to Florida with a plan in her head to meet somebody who resembled her looks wise, identity. And this is what she done. She befriended this innocent woman. You know, they went out a few times drinking friendly, and then she killed her, stole her identity, and the cops were after her, but they were saying we need to catch her, and they couldn't understand what drove this woman to, you know, to do what she done. And
do you know that one case recently, it made me laugh. I should, and heaven strike me down for laughing, right? But there was a woman recently that stabbed her husband, and it was down in England, stabbed her husband. And do you know, we always talk about killers that have no remorse. When this woman was getting arrested, she said, "Oh, good." And then when they wanted to try and revive him, she was like, "Oh, please don't." She says, and it was that, do you know, my jaw dropped and I laughed, but it wasn't a laugh because I was laughing at the situation. It was just, I was laughing at the woman's reaction. You know, people that have done such a crime would be all over the place, that panicking. This lady had no panicking. She was, you know, straight faced, you know, laughing about it, and it was just like mind blowing.
see, I would, well, I think I would have had a chore to that as well. You know, to actually sit and watch that, which is, you know, not just, you know, just leave them. You know, just leave them lying there, let them bleed out, or, you know, whatever. Don't bother trying to bring them back.
I know it was down in Somerset, and she was jailed. She was actually jailed for life, for murdering her husband. But it was just, even when you hear her on the 999 call, she quite calmly tells them, "I've stabbed him. He told me that I wouldn't stab him, so I stabbed him twice." And it was just like, what?
It's, I mean, cases like that, you know, there is that wee fun side. At times I understand the reaction, it's tempting. That's Laura talking about her loving hubby Craig.
Oh, I can imagine.
See, the thing I would think about that is no one tell Craig Dawson that's her man, no, because he's not going to see this, you know. The thing that with that woman saying, you know, he said I wouldn't stab, I stabbed him twice, and she seemed kind of relieved and happy. Maybe, you know, to me, you need to look in the background. Has there been years of things going on behind closed doors, and she's just had enough? And then,
Well,
you
when you
know,
look at this woman, right, it's kind of like she said that he was obviously abusing her, right? But then there was people coming out saying that she's had husbands that have actually committed suicide. So it's quite one of those ones. Is she actually been abused, or is she like the Black Widow, as people would refer them to? But you know, I mean, telling the call handler that I've killed my husband or tried to because I've had enough,
that's
and
makes me
it was
wonder
like, oh,
push her so
what you
far.
done to me?
There,
And it's mind blowing.
there was another case. This is turning into a crime lie, but do you know what? It's different. Do you see? It's different. This is really because involved
Sorry, I'm turning your paranormal into crime. I do apologise.
like crime and normal paracrime. Paracrime.
We could say a paracrime.
There's a title, paracrime. I won't go into too much detail because there was a kid involved, but basically the guy had, you know, taken the kid, and he phoned the 911, and they were asking him how he was, and he says, "Oh, you know, it's just another day."
Oh my
Because
God.
they on the program they played the recording back, and so it's just another day. But he waited something like 45 minutes before he phoned them. And you think, what's going through your head, you evil, you know? He just kind of shrugs his shoulders. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of people out there that I can talk from experience. When I was a teenager, I hung about in a, wasn't so much a gang, there was about 4 or 5 years, you know. And at the time, there was somebody, it happened twice, somebody broke in to this person's, a woman's house, with a mask and a knife, and they tied the mother up, and they forced the boyfriend and girlfriend to have sex in front of the
Oh
mirror.
my God.
This happened twice, and so it was one day I met up with my pals, and they say to me, "Did you hear about Grant?" There's a guy hung about where's called Grant. He called him Granny. He says, "Do you hear about Grant?" And he says, "No." He says, "He's been lifted." So you know, what's he done? Kind of, and we were for Paul, so getting lifted was kind of a usual routine sort of thing, you know.
Aye.
Never a week went by with somebody was not lifted, and he says it's him that's been breaking into the houses.
Oh my God.
And I didn't put two and two together at first. I thought he was just robbing houses. I says, "Where's he?" He says, "No, he's the guy with the knife and the mask." And it was a guy we grew up with.
Oh my
You know,
God.
his mum had passed away years before, and he lived with his dad. And this was a guy we seen on a daily basis, and we'd went to school, and you know all the usual things you do when a teenager. But it was him that was doing it.
Oh my God.
And you know, I think he got me 12 years for it or something.
I mean, I suppose, right, when there's cases out there, right, like, I think they should be a wee bit more lenient on, and I, I I've got a very, very strong opinion about it, like, assisted suicide.
Euthanasia.
Well, there's a word, I couldn't think it. Euthanasia, right? And I have a strong opinion. I think it's a human's right. If they want to die, let them. Right? If they are medically really, really sore, you wouldn't see an animal suffer, so why see a human suffer? And there was a case, if you don't, you might remember it was in Troon, where a man helped his wife to die.
Can you hear a clicking? Talena.
Alright. It was in Troon, and he'd obviously helped his wife to die, and the judge sentenced him for 3 years.
Right.
And there was a petition to obviously get the man. Sarah says she still hears it. It's still there.
I'm hearing it off and on. I don't know where it is, but
and do you know what? When I look at cases like that, I tend to have to say it should be made legal. You know, I can hear tapping as well. That's quite weird.
Sten can hear it as well. I know in Switzerland they've got that organisation. Oh, can't remember what it's called. I've watched some videos on it.
Yeah, I know exactly what one, and I totally, do you know what, 100% agree with it, but I don't agree with just going out and taking a life for the sake of taking it.
No, that's you know. Don't get me wrong. There's sometimes in life you meet somebody and you just want to strangle them. You know,
Oh,
but
aye, God, aye. We've all got that.
we've
If they're in
all,
mental custody. Definitely, I mean.
I think we've all been in a situation in our life where you just want to stick a knife in a particular person. You know, but obviously you stop yourself. You know,
Aye.
one, it's wrong, and two, you don't want to end up in the slammer.
Aye.
If you see an animal suffer, why let a human suffer? The mental capacity to make a decision to end their life when you should be a human choice, and that tapping is driving me mental.
I can't even.
I think it's away now. I did hear it constant, and then it was kind of off and on.
Maybe
So,
we've got a third guest, but we just can't see the third guest.
maybe they're trying to tell you to come back to the paranormal.
Aye, well, maybe that's what the tapping is. Get fucking back here.
Aye, where you been, Lou? We're missing you. But
Aye,
not
probably.
the right to, you know, if they're terminally ill or whatever, then you know it's their choice, their life. If they want to leave this life, then you know it's down to them. It's no, You've not been in Scott's house. We're never going to live this done. I'm not saying too much because Riggy and his team's going to investigate here, but we've got stuff going on in here. It's been going on for a couple of years, but Laura stayed here a few times and she says she always hears this, noises and stuff, you know. We're used to it. But the first time she stayed, she says, I could hear voices last night during the night, people talking. I says, that's because there's people up the stairs for us. Laura stays in her house, you know, up downstairs. We stay in a 4 block, basically.
Yeah.
I say, that's because there's people up the stairs talking. That's what you heard. But you do hear noise, you know, there is noises and bits and pieces.
Well, I have been in to use your bathroom. I did get a few.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've been in mine. Male called
Yeah.
Fred? No.
No, I don't know. Somebody called Fred. I call my partner Fred sometimes, just as to wind him up. But no, definitely not. But yeah, I mean, my show, it's not for the fainted-hearted, and I always do put out a strong viewer's discretion because, you know, obviously you do get folk that will get upset with some of the subjects, and again, as I like to tell everybody, my opinions are my own. It's no like gospel.
Mm-hmm.
One of my school friends was convicted of murder, and do you know it's amazing the amount of people that actually we know growing up that one way or another, like we've always got that one person that we know.
Mm-hmm. Aye. The one person that you think, you know, to say Grant with us, you know, we're totally, you know, shocked. We couldn't believe it. Even his dad, we went after he was, you know, taken away, and obviously he wasn't let out in bail or nothing. We went to see his dad, and he's like, his dad had to move. And his dad had lived there with his wife. He says, I need to move. He said, because see the amount of people that have been running this house and all the rest of it, and there was stuff getting written on his walls, you know, outside the dad's house and what have you. And he says, this is nothing. Folk think I'm involved. He said, but this is nothing.
That's the problem. Have you ever, recently I read about the Da Vinci rapist, Robert Greene, and his brother, there was twins, him and his brother, and his brother's, I think it's wife or girlfriend, was in the paper last week begging absolutely people to leave him alone because the guy is dying, and because, you know, it takes one person to say, oh, I seen Robert Greene. They've been outside that guy's house absolutely terrorising him. And he even admits he hates looking like his brother.
Aye, just because he resembles him.
And I don't agree with that at all. I really, really don't.
No, but that's the thing. With society, as you were saying, you always put a kind of warning up, because I mean, some of the cases I've watched on TV are quite, you know, horrendous.
It is.
That some people go just to end somebody's life.
I mean, I've seen cases that I've wanted to speak about, but you know the power of Facebook, Scott. You've got to watch what you say and what you don't say. So that's why I always put up the strong viewers discretion across the screen, because I'm thinking I'm giving myself the coverage as well to say, well, you're watching this, you're knowing what I'm talking about here, then I'm sorry, but I'm covering my backside by putting strong viewers discretion. So it's not like I'm not warning them.
You're covered. So I mean, when you think of the amount of series there are on, like say, Netflix, Amazon, on TV and what have you, and the amount of cases there's been over the last, I don't say 50, well, you can go back X amount of years. How do you go about choosing your cases? You know, what ones you like to talk about? Because let's face it, it's like an ocean, you know.
It is an ocean. I mean, sometimes I find it really hard to know what I'm going to talk about because there is so much to cover. I mean, I didn't actually realise how much, and as you say, it's like an ocean wide out there. It's like, where do you start? Well, let's start with the beginning. Let's start with the nature nurture debate. Everybody talks about the nature nurture debate. It's a big debate. That's why I did one show on its own. Right, well, what does other people like? People love the craze. I hate them, I love them. People love the craze. So let's talk about the craze. What I really want to dive into is starting with like certain places, like the underworld, um, like Glasgow, and then move to Manchester. You know, it's a good debate, Laura. It really, really is, and a very interesting one. And you actually be surprised, Laura, how much we use nature nurture, not just for crime, but for everyday life and human behaviour. Um, but I mean, as you say, Scott, it's a big, big ocean. I mean, Glasgow, if I had to start in Glasgow crime, I would need to span it air about 6 shows or something because Glasgow's like, it's the second, I don't know if it is still, but it's one of the secondest in Europe to have the highest crime rate in Glasgow.
See, also, I'm a Glaswegian. You know, I was brought up in Glasgow and what have you. I only moved here about 6 years or 7 years ago. And the thing about Glasgow is they say it was named the murder capital of the world, but
Yep.
then it was named Britain's friendly city.
I know, it's like, how
You know,
can you have a contradiction with a contradiction? You can't say it's murder capital and then turn around on the other hand and say it's the most friendliest. It's crazy. I mean, as you know, I've worked in postal, and I'll never ever forget it. And it was, when I heard I was going to postal, I was like, oh my god. I'm like, oh my god, what is this going to be like? And I walked in, right, and I'm thinking to myself, oh god. But postal's not actually that bad. I think the only time that I've been there for the 2 years, 2.5 years maybe, in postal, the whole time I've been going there, there's only been one murder. And the whole time I was in there, and I think it was my second or third week into postal, and I didn't know my way around postal, like I didn't know my way out. So when the police cordoned postal, it cordoned the full lot. I actually cordoned it right out to where the start of postal is, where I think it's where Justin's is or something. And no, I didn't know postal, and I was like really, really getting anxiety because I'm thinking, oh my god, how did I get out here? I don't know my way, blah blah blah. And this is actually quite a funny story. So then I got to the end of the road where the police had cordoned and that, and I managed to find my way. And I thought, oh my god, I'm going to be late for my train. So I phoned a taxi, got a taxi, and me and the taxi driver were talking. And I said, I hope you're not wanting to get into postal for the next couple of hours. I said, police, forensics, the full lot, cordoned off. And it was just his reaction, Scott, I'll never ever forget it. And he went, oh, it'll probably be another murder in postal tonight then. And I was so dumbfounded. Like, you being a Glaswegian, me a girl being from Ayrshire. Even when I lived in Straven, there was nothing like that. So, well, there were murders and that, but it wasn't like an everyday occurrence. And
mhm.
it was just his reaction, and I was so gobsmacked by this. I'm thinking, okay then. And I came home, and the first time I dropped my bag, and I told my partner about my night, and I was like, but it was just his reaction. It was, just another word on post. And I'm thinking, oh my god. I'm like, he says, but Louise, you've got to remember, it's Glasgow. They see it all the time.
See, my reaction would have been the same as the taxi driver. I remember years ago in Paul, I grew up in Pollock, which was named the kind of roughest area of Glasgow, but a lot of that storytelling. You know, you tell if somebody grew up in Pollock. And I always remember one night there was a guy in the middle of Pollock. There's a burn, you know, runs through it, and there's bridges go over it. One night, this guy got ambushed with 3 guys with swords, and he get murdered there. It was a Saturday night, around about 5, 6 o'clock, broad daylight during the summer. We used to hang about with the guy, and they just done him in right there and then. And so obviously we heard about it. We said, well, there'll be something else is going to happen. And about 2 days later, one of the guys that done, you know, the killing, they found him at the top of a hill, ripped to hell, you know. But nobody was surprised. You know, like, oh my God, that's terrible. A couple of, you know, you got the older kind of women that said, oh, poor boy. And so I said, what do you mean, poor boy? He macheted a guy with a sword on a bridge a couple of nights back, you know. But everybody was expecting it. So that taxi driver, you know, I think it's just another murder. They'll be expecting another kind of revenge one coming in the next couple of days. So I can see his reaction because I grew up with that.
I mean, as you say, you grew up in Glasgow, and I've been in Glasgow a good few times. I mean, well, I currently work there, and I love Glasgow. I've always loved Glasgow, and what interests me about Glasgow is they give you, it's like, it takes me back to Chinese whispers, right? When you start a story, and then somebody adds that bit on, and then somebody else adds that bit on, and before you know it, like you're going into hell. The full places are right. You know, you're not going to make it out. Folk have got to stay with trainers, rob you your things and your clothes. But they're actually the most nicest people you'll ever meet.
If you come off a train in Glasgow, if you're from, you know, wherever, say Manchester, and you come off a train in Glasgow and you can't fix it, if you ask somebody from Glasgow where, you know, like say maybe Argyle Street is, see if they've got the time, they'll take you to Argyle Street. They say, well, come on, I'll show you where it is. You know, or I'm going that way, just, you know, come with me. A lot of it is, you know, Chinese whisper storytelling. I mean, there's a pub in Pollock, the Pollock Inn, but it's nicknamed the Stab Inn. You know, it's just one of these names that was given years and years ago. I always remember one night there was a guy who was saying, oh, I was at the Stab Inn the other night, and there was like 4 riot vans and 3 police cars outside. You know, there was a big fight and everything. I'm thinking, I ended say, I said, what night was this? Oh, Saturday night, mate. There was chaos. I said, I was in Pollock Inn Saturday. I said, what happened? I said, what Pollock Inn were you in? And I ended up asking a couple of boys, like, I was here on Saturday. Did I miss anything? No, nothing happened. I said, well, there's some thingy around there saying there was all these riot vans and everything. I said, no, nothing. So, a lot of it is, don't get me wrong, there was stuff happened, you know, but majority of the time it was just people, you know, oh, I was in the Pollock Inn, there was 10 riot vans there, I was fighting and all, you know, just trying to be kind of big me.
Do you know, when I look at the Glasgow underworld, you know, it's not that I am definitely the lowest. Glasgow to Manchester might be worth talking to my dad. No name mentioned, but if you do, I could get a personal interview if you were interested. Aye, that would be great, Laura. Aye, it'd be absolutely great. When I look at the Glasgow underworld, you know, it's not. I'm quite fascinated with Paul Ferris and Blank McDonald. I'm quite fascinated with it too. And when I sat and I listened to the interview that James English done with Paul Ferris, I mean, growing up, you know, it was names like Paul Ferris. I wasn't aware of Blank McDonald. I was more known Blank McDonald when his car got petrol bomb, but Paul Ferris, you know, always grew up and it was always Paul Ferris. I can always remember crime books that I think it was my dad had at the time, and sitting being fascinated and reading, not understanding actually what was going on, but you know, like I was like, oh my god, this guy, and it's crazy.
If you want to know better about, well, because that's the thing about, you know, you're talking about doing the Glasgow and the Lord of the Manchester, you need to watch. I think it's a kind of a minefield kind of thing when you start talk about they kind of, the underworld and what have you. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, Paul Ferris, couldn't be a nicer guy.
Aye, that's the thing, they've all, when you look at obviously the underworld and that, you'll look at, all types, you'll see all types, and I just love it. It's just a fascination, because people will say everybody loves a bad boy, and it's not even that. I think my mind's fascinated with what makes people do what they do and what creates these gangs, what actually does create these gangs. I mean, look at the craze. I think if Ronnie and Reggie were still here, I'd still be fascinated with them, even though they would be in prison. Because I'm just thinking, how does that gang actually form?
A lot of the time it's through they grew up together, and I mean, like I say, you different gangs obviously, and different gangs have different purposes or different goals, like I say Pollock, the Pollock old crew basically, their main purpose was just to keep peace in Pollock, for drug dealers, any stuff like that. If there was anything ever been on, then it was sorted, put it that way, quieter. If somebody maybe broke into an old woman's house or something, things like that, or beating up women, all that kind of stuff, it was kind of sorted out, and that was the end of the matter. But then these days, it's all like drugs and alcohol and money and what have you. Laura's put up, it's environment, biological, and nature, nurture debate.
Again, aye, it does. I mean, as I said, Laura, that debate you could use in everyday life. Everyday life. Why does somebody act the way they do? How does somebody work their wee quirks where they've got to have routines and things like that? It's amazing. See, when you actually read that debate, you don't realise how much in like a roundabout everyday life that everybody uses. Why does everybody do what they do?
Mhm.
Why does everybody, have a routine? They get up in the morning, they do this, do that, do the next thing. They like the routine to be set. It's things like that. Like I love people watching when I'm in Glasgow. I really do. I love sitting watching their wee quirks and things like that. I'm
St
just
Enoch
like,
Square, I used to people watch at St Enoch Square, just where the underground is, the benches and that beside the Gregs. I used to sit there for ages and just, as you say, you weren't being nosy. You were just watching people walking by and what have you. One of the greatest things I remember seeing is it was a guy, and I actually wrote, I used to do writing years and years ago, and I actually wrote a short story called The Way to Be. And I always remember it was a guy, and like in the middle of Glasgow was kind of lunchtime. Everybody's rushing about because they're trying to get to Greg's or wherever, but they can get back to work time. So folk were just rushing about everywhere, and there was this guy standing, and he was trying to light a cigarette, and his lighter kept going out. But he wasn't getting angry. He wasn't getting annoyed. He took another couple of steps and then tried again. Wouldn't go. And this must happen 3 or 4 times. He just stopped and stopped. And he's like, well, and he just slowly walked away. And that fascinated me. If you're trying to light a cigarette and it's not, and you go, light, light, light. This guy just wasn't bothered. And he kind of stuck out for the crowd. That everybody else was running about mad. But he was not caring. He knew where he was going, and he wasn't in any rush because he knew the place would still be there when he got there, and just off he went. I think the
uh,
light tossed in the bin and away he went.
do you know it's things like that, and it's also it's just watching people. I love that whole, ever since like I read the nature nurture debate, it's really opened my eyes to society. Like when you watch people and watch the wee quirks and why do they do what they do, and
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely an eye opener because you don't actually realise how much which we do in life that you think why.
Why do you do it? And
Mm-hmm.
even you sit and you're watching people and you see somebody sitting and all of a sudden their facial expression changes. They're not on their phone, they're just sitting there maybe on a bench and their facial expression changes. And as I say, they're not on their phone, nothing around them, their environment's no changed or anything, you know. And you think, I wonder if that person's just thought to make them smile.
Mhm. It's do you know they did a thing, and do you know it really did. It was a good experiment. If I can find the experiment, I'll send it on to you. But it did an experiment, I think it was down in London or somewhere like that, and they done, I think it was somebody that was having an epileptic fit, somebody that was drunk, and I can't mind if it was somebody that was full of drugs, but it wasn't really folk that were like that. It was just they were trying to see what society would do and who they would help, and it shocked me the amount of people that actually walked by, like the person that was taking an epileptic fit, they would just walk by, and that horrified me as a human because I'm thinking somebody's needing that help. Why is people just walking by? But we live in a society, as people might agree or might not agree, we live in a today's society where you, you're too feared to do anything because anything could happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think we should take time to look after each other, that sort of way.
I mean, if you see, I mean, I've done it myself in the past, you know, if you're in the car and you see some male woman try to cross the road, then you stop and you hold the traffic up, you know, and you just say, right, you know, on you go. Things like that. But you see, if somebody's lying there and they're taking an epileptic fit or something, people are very judgmental. They automatically assume it's drugs or it's drink, you know. Or if you see somebody lying and they're maybe unconscious, but folks, some people assume that they're just out their face on drink and they fell asleep. But the person could actually be, you know, in a coma or you know whatever. But as you say, folks just don't want to get involved, you know.
I think that's maybe what that was actually, Laura. I think I did watch that. Because I can. It's always stuck in my head, like watching it. Because I've just thought the amount of people that actually just walk by, and it was horrifying to me because I was like, regardless, I would be first, right? I can remember this happened to me in Postal, that I was on the bus and it was just when COVID had just started. We were in the very first lockdown and we were obviously going through Postal. The bus had only moved one stop, and suddenly it went to a ground halt and people were running down the stairs and I'm thinking, my God, what's happened? And I could hear like one of the people talking and saying to the bus driver, "There's a guy lying up there and he's in vomit." And I'm thinking, you are all running down here, but you've left that guy up above.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was just a carer's instinct or just me, but I just sprinted into action and I bolted up the stair, bearing in mind, no protection, no nothing on me, right? But I wasn't caring because I'm thinking, you've just left, whether that guy, which he was, under the influence, regardless, I'm thinking, how can you just leave him up there as if he was nothing? And I ran up and I helped the guy. And, I told my partner, and he's like, Louise, did you sanitize your hands, wash your hands? I said, when I got to the train station, because I couldn't wash my hands in the middle of fresh air when there's nothing obviously around about me. But I wouldn't have left that guy. And I even phoned the ambulance that night, thank you. I even phoned the ambulance that night for that person because I just thought I don't have it in my conscience to run off a bus while somebody upstairs struggling.
Mm-hmm. It's the way society is these days. You know, there's a lot of people just do it for themselves and what have you. And they'll walk by somebody in the street who's maybe. I mean, don't get me. I've done it myself. I've seen people in the street in the afternoon and they have been out their face with drink or drugs or and you think, what a state to get into, And sometimes you feel bad for saying it. As I say, I do admit I've done it myself. But if you see somebody lying unconscious, how do you go out to them and just say, obviously,
you're right, pal. Aye.
all right, or which is a stupid question to ask if they're lying there unconscious.
Listen, I've done it myself. I mean, I've done training, and it was quite funny. I had them in stitches because it was like I had actually forgot to go down and check if they were actually breathing. It was just automatic. I just like sat doing that. And my pal was like, "Louise, you've got the first step. What's that? Check if they're actually breathing." I was like, "Oops!" And now this dummy. It's just, as I said, it's things like that. But yeah, guys, check out my crime show, definitely. As I said, come along. Everyone's welcome.
Actually, we kind of ran out of time. I know you're limited tonight, dog, but we will be getting you back on and I'll get you dates for Amityville.
Yes, please do.
I will do because I really want, it's a story we really want to recover better, what we go over, but I don't know what the word is. So when's you just plug your group again before we say goodnight?
Criminals and Villains tomorrow night, 9:30. Me and Rosie Posey is going to do a show together. But every Wednesday night, guys, at 9:30, tune in. And remember, strong viewers' discretion. Come at your own risk.
Watch at your own peril. I mean, I think I'm not sure. I'll need to check our calendar see if we've got a live tomorrow night. If we know, I'll definitely be watching. But if we have got a live, I'll definitely catch up with it anyway. So that's us for tonight, folks. A different kind of live, which always makes life interesting. There was a slight touch of the paranormal. No, it's kind of history in a way. Talk about crime and stuff, but I think we're back tomorrow night. I'm not sure, but I will put a post up. So thanks for watching, folks, and enjoy the rest of your night. And thanks for, I'm going to call you Lou, for coming on. It's been quite a while, but she will be back. Much merit. And mind check out our show tomorrow.
Thanks very much, guys. Thank you.
Talk to you all soon. Bye. Bye.